Now the grab and go bag has been a very popular bag, and there's been a variety of different ways for it to be put together. So this is an alternative version if you don't want to do much in the way of hand sewing and you don't want to use any binding. And this is the binding version. So I've got all my pieces, and I've also added a little bit of bag foam to the back of the patterned fabric. The lining fabric, I haven't bothered putting anything on that, so I'm just going to move those pieces just to the side for the time being. And the first thing that I'm going to do is take the large outer piece and the zip, and I'm going to attach the zip to that piece. Now if you've got a zip that isn't quite long enough, then what you can do is actually add some tabs so as it fills in that gap to the side of those. Because what will actually happen is the back piece will be attached, and you need to make sure that it goes right the way through to the end piece. So here you go, you can see I've added a couple of little tabs to this particular piece here. And I'm just going to position it so it's central, and then trim off any excess that you might have there, just so as everything lines up nice and neatly as well. So find the halfway point to make sure that you've got equal distance, and then halfway point of your zip as well, and line those up. I'm going to snip away any excess little bits that you've got there just to keep it neat and tidy. And then with the right side of the zip facing the right side of the fabric, you're just going to attach one to the other. So you can pin or clip that if you're wanting to. Use your zipper foot and stitch it all together. So once that's all stitched, it's in place, and we're going to add the other part of the bag front. Now you might find that it's a little bit to wrestle with at this stage, dependent on the bag foam that you've used, or if you've used in our form. Your Bosal I've used on this occasion. And you just press it, give it a little bit of a press, just to kind of get it into position. And just to get it to sit a little flatter than it was initially. It might bounce back up as you're working, but you'll be okay. Then you take the next part, and that's going to sit along the other side of the zip. And you can do the same procedure with regards to that. So there we go, we've got those two pieces to the side, and then we're going to use the back panel and attach that to one of the raw edges. So again, use your half a centimetre seam allowance on that as well. And then once you stitch that in place, you're going to take the other raw edge and line those up, so make sure it's all neatly lined up, and then stitch that again in the same way. So there you go, you can see that the outer of our bag is starting to take shape. So you can have a little check over, make sure everything's as you want it to be, and it all looks nice and neat. There you go, your zip's working as well. Good, always a good thing to check. Right, so the next thing that we need to do is to add the base and the lid. Now I always suggest that you add the base first, because this can be a little bit of a learning experience, and you won't actually see the base, so if you make any mistakes then you don't have to worry so much. So find the halfway point horizontally of the base, and you can press it. If you've got foam on there, it might be a little bit tricky to actually see a press line, so just put a couple of little marks with a pen. I'm using a heat erasable pen, but it doesn't matter if it's a regular ballpoint pen, you won't see it when it's stitched together, especially if you're doing it on the inside. And then I'm going to find the halfway points by lining up those seams for the back piece, and lining up, well, just folding it on the front fold, as you can see there. So I've got my halfway points there, line those up, and then I'll get my quarter points as well. And again, just find a way of marking that, whether it's with a pen or whether you choose to use a pin, it's entirely up to you. So those are going to match up with the markings that you've put on your base. Just make sure that you've got your base in the right profile, so you've not got the short edge facing you. Otherwise you'll find that you've got a different shape of a bag. So then you just clip And I tend to clip those marked points to start with, and this is good practice for any project where you're adding a shaped base to kind of straight sides. So pop those points together there on the quarter points. And then around the edge, what I've done is I've just snipped on both of the pieces already. Don't go any further than your seam allowance, but it just gives you the opportunity to manipulate the fabric around any curves that you've got. And just keep pinning and clipping so you've got everything nice and secure for when you take it over to the sewing machine. There we go, all done. So then I'm just going to place it on the sewing machine in this sort of style, and then stitch again using your 1/2 centimetre seam allowance. There we go, all done, all the clips removed, and you can see that when I turn it through, it's starting to look like a grab and go bag. There you go. Okay, perfect. So we're going to do the same procedure with the lid. Now do remember that with your lid you do need to attach your handle before you put it in place. I've lost count how many bags I've put the lid in before I've actually attached the handle. So the handle is made using a piece of fabric and then just a little strip again of the wadding if you wanted it to be a firmer handle. And all you're going to do is fold in the edges, so about 1/2 centimetre. And all you're going to do is kind of encapsulate that foam by wrapping the fabric around it. So fold one edge. There's a few different methods of how you do your handles, it's entirely up to you, but the way that I do this is I just wrap it round, and then the folded edge I take up to the edge of the handle and then just clip it in place. Do a little bit of top stitching, a couple of rows of top stitching either side, and then you end up with your handle as you can see here. Now again, your handle you can put in a couple of different ways. I clip it in place. If you want it to be more central, then you could actually stitch it like so, but I tend to put it into the seam. So I'll just clip it. And if you want to, if you want to make sure that it doesn't kind of move, then you can put a few little kind of tacking stitches or take it to your sewing machine and stitch it in place. Just make sure that any tacking that you do is within the seam allowance. And then again, same as we did before, you're going to turn your bag. Again, make sure you do this. You need your fabrics to be right sides together. Also undo your zip as well, because otherwise you can have a bit of a job turning it through afterwards. And then all you're going to do is take the lid, and then again make sure if you've got any directional pattern that it's sitting the right way, and then pop that in place the same way as you did before. So again, marking and lining up as you go. So again, once you're done with that, take it over to your sewing machine in a similar way, stitch it as we did with the base. So there you go, all done. Turn it through and you have an unlined grab and go bag. But of course we want to finish it off with that lining. So again, just do a few little visual checks, make sure that you're happy with everything as it is, that the zip's working. Now you put the lining together in exactly the same way, with the exception that you're not going to attach the zip at this stage. So you'll take your main part, and because the zip isn't going in place, what you're going to do is just fold over 1/2 centimetre along the long edge and just press it in place. You're also going to do that with the lid piece. Then you're going to get the back piece, and make sure again with right sides together that everything lines up perfectly, or the lid and the side piece should I say. Make sure that it fits with the back, and the reason you're leaving that little gap between the two pieces is because you are going to need to pop the zip into that area, but we'll look at that in a few moments. So I'm going to stitch down the side like I did before. And then again, line up the other pieces with that raw open edge and stitch those together too. And then you will insert the lid piece and the base piece in exactly the same way as you did with the outer bag. So if you want to fast forward, you can do, or you can listen to the pretty music. So there we go. Now we have our lining bag. So this is going to sit inside the outer bag that we've got. So this time, wrong sides together. You're going to pop the bag lining in, and still with those lining up points that you've got, kind of position where it needs to go. So lining up the corners, lining up the centres, and just get it sitting roughly in the right position. Then you're going to start putting the lining just to the inside of the zip area. So you need to make sure that you've got the clearance of the zip teeth, because obviously you want the zip to work, but then you're going to start clipping that and we'll stitch it all together in a few moments. So just take a little bit of time lining up those points. You then repeat the process on the lid and work your way around the lid as well. Now when you get to the side parts, you will see that you've got a little bit of the lining that kind of opens up just to the edges of the zips. So what you can do is just kind of pull those together and pop a little pin in place, and when you come to top stitch the zip in place, these are often caught in. However, I personally like to use a little bit of hand stitching. It's only a few stitches just to neaten up those afterwards, but you can give it a go. So just pop a couple of pins in there. And then when we top stitch the zip, if we go beyond the end of the zip, hopefully we'll be able to catch those in. Turn it through and then top stitch along the edge of the zip, going right from the seam where the back piece went in, right the way along the zip, way back to the other seam where the back piece went in. And you'll do that on the top part of the zip and on the bottom part of the zip. But you need to make sure that you catch the lining as you are doing so. So yeah, don't go too close to the zip teeth. There we go. There's our bag. So as I open it up, you'll be able to see that piece that I was talking about just to the side of the zips. So I've not stitched this yet, but it didn't quite catch. So I'm just going to take a few little whip stitches there in the same colour thread and just finish that off so it's all neat and tidy. But there you go, another version of your grab and go bag.